you can get the party shirt.
That's right.
Obviously, none of us want to. Peter,
Yeah.
Turn the mics.
I guess,
Oh, it's time.
fired up.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
We're gonna try and finish up, getting through the, funds that we didn't have a chance to get to last time. We're gonna also talk about the rate increases that, are factored into these, and, get into some of the information related to employee compensation and insurance increases and how we propose to handle that in the upcoming year. We'll be looking for direction. We're gonna give you a couple of options on employee compensation. Before Bruce leaves the room, he. Oh, I'm sorry. So I'm going to turn it over to Bruce.
Okay, I'll pass it on to Mark. Well, we can go through depends on which ones you look at. The budget book, it's 119, and the handout I gave you is page 3, it's the same thing. I just figured in case you didn't bring your budgets, I just reprinted what we hadn't gone over yet. So what I handed out to you is on page 3, as you can see, it's a summary. We projected the revenues, and then Mark's expenditures, capital outlay is in there. So you can see where we end up at the bottom. If you look at the next sheet on page 4, which is the water sales rates, as you can see on page 5, that's from the rate study. So it'll go up 2%. And so we've got those calculated in the revenues. As you see, the 2% only generates about $65,000. But that's included in there based on the rate study. If you look on page 6 is what they have for the rate study that we had. And that's where we took that from. And again, a lot of this stuff is tied into the loans and the financing we got, and based on the projections that we had here done with the rate study. So that all goes hand in hand. And then for expenditures and stuff, I turn that over to Mark. Or you got it. Go ahead.
I'd like to get some feedback from the council on the rate increase this year. We're proposing 5 years of rate increases in order to meet the capital obligations that are coming for the water treatment plant, and wanted to see if there's going to be any considered deviation to that, or are we going to continue down that road?
You said our financing was contingent on those. Did you say that, Bruce? So we pretty much have to stick by it or come up with some other source of funds, correct?
Well, you have the option of making a change, and we can start living off of reserves at some point, but yeah, that's probably not the best option.
Right.
I think it's we've said this every year for 7 years anyway, that this is all across the board. If you go any town across America, pretty much they raise water increase rates almost every year for this reason. I just, again, feel we need to put something in the billing and on the website explaining why we're doing this.
Right.
I know we do it every year almost, but I think it's very important. Just when someone complains and they say, hey, well, this is what we have to do in the next 10 years. If we don't do it, you don't got clean water. I just think that's a very important piece of education, I guess.
Right.
Right. Because the loan was like 3.2 million. And so that's what we've got to pay back and generate revenues to offset that for the changes we made to the system. Yeah.
Tony's absolutely right that we do need to, even though we have said it, I think it's probably in our best interest and the fairest we can be to the citizens that pay for this. I don't want to use the term re-educate, but to re-inform them that this is why we're doing what we're doing. Because I know there's some grumbling. There's I've noticed on my own bill a substantial increase in just the water bill. I mean, I'll be the first to say it, not a problem. I mean, I understand why. I know that we have the option of looking at the percentage that we're adjusting or raising by. My question to you guys would be, are we on track where we feel like we need to be or close to where we should be? I would hope that if we were looking at this going, wow, we're really going to be a couple million ahead on our project, that we would adjust that down, obviously. But I guess that I just would like to hear that from you guys, that we feel like, I'm afraid you're going to tell me we're probably still going to be low.
Well, I was going to say that based on our experience the past 2 or 3 years, we seem to be tracking really well. Of course, we have different experiences each year based on the capital requirements of that year. But right now, the water fund is in very good shape. We've deferred some projects to get there. But I think at the end of 5 years, we took a really conservative approach. You remember we started out in 2018 at a 6% increase
Yep.
each year for the next 5 years. And we took a very conservative approach for both water and wastewater. And I think at the end of 5 years, if we see that reserves are starting to get impacted, we probably do another rate study and see where we need to be.
Okay,
It's hard to predict what inflation's going to do to us.
Understood.
And all those things.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we're headed for another rough budget year. I think that it's just an opinion,
Right.
but I don't think we've seen the total fallout of 2020 yet. Regardless, I know that the city's done fairly well, and the local economy is not terrible, I'm glad to say, but I think that the state is going to, I think we're going to see differences.
Yeah, the grant funding is going to be critical to
Right.
us over the next few years. You know, if we
Right.
can continue to offset 50% of all of his improvements,
Sure,
we'll be in much better shape.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Chris?
So what was the total final project cost? Were we under budget, or we come in, on the water? Because basically this 2% per year is based on what we needed for the water plant upgrade, correct?
Yeah, we came in under plan considerably. We started out at 5.2 million. We ended up at 2.8 or 2.9 million, correct? Yeah. So.
Almost half.
Right, but I think that's good based on the conservative approach that we've taken to these increases.
So that being said,
Right.
do we feel like there's any wiggle room?
Yeah.
Moving into next year's percentage raise?
I think we ought to stick with it.
Okay,
Typically, in the past, what's happened is if we didn't go a year and then we go down the road and reevaluate, then we have to double it, rather than just a little bit each year.
sure.
And these rates, these 2% has a lot of grants in it. So if the grants stop now and we don't get much the next 3-4 years, those rates, 2% is not going to cover it if we don't get those grants.
We all know what's, happening to DOLA and their source of funding, and
Right.
they're typically the infrastructure funders,
Yeah,
so.
okay,
Mark's going to have to get more creative out there.
got it.
Well, I think we can also look at it next year, I think.
Yeah, every year, right? Something to just be responsible about.
Yeah, and by ordinance, the charter and ordinance does say that we review those every year too. So obviously, we do that during budget all the time.
Sure. Okay.
So Mark, you want to kick into, here you go. The budget. Here you go.
We'll go into the first part. Because of all the equipment that was added to the booster stations, the chloramine systems and equipment that I got now, I have found it becoming increasingly more difficult to maintain and install new equipment and do that kind of stuff. So I am proposing in this budget to have a half position water and wastewater for maintenance. For a maintenance guy, I do not have any maintenance techs really. Just to do all that kind of stuff, install equipment for me, pool pumps, rebuild pumps, mechanical seals, that kind of stuff. So I did add that half position in both water and wastewater.
What's the other half of that position? Is that Bruce?
Wastewater.
Finance?
No, wastewater, water and
Oh, I'm
wastewater,
sorry.
half and half.
Half and half.
Half and half out of water and half out of wastewater because of all the equipment we got to maintain and all the lift stations and all the pump stations and booster stations. So that, there's a slight increase because of that. But I guess my biggest increases are going to start, it looks like, if you look down at 221 and 221.19, chemicals are starting to increase drastically. LAS to make chloramines is fairly expensive. My chemicals are going up from 130 roughly to about 160,000. That's my estimate. It could be higher. Same with my lab chemicals. I have to use ChemKeys to monitor chloramines because you can't do that in the field with a colorimetry system. You have to have ChemKeys, and it's about $10 a key to monitor chloramines and stuff. So that gets very expensive. We found that $5,000 to $10,000 more a year is going to be roughly required to do those kind of testing. So we have that. Electrical costs are going up, but I'm projecting that going up a little bit from about 170,000 to 200,000.
Does that take into consideration?
The new stations and everything else.
No,
Well, with the
solar.
solar, no, I don't know what solar is going to do for us yet, so I had
Oh,
to kind of
okay.
go without projecting that right away.
Sure.
That might get better, of course. I did find an error in here, by the way. Biggest jump I think I have in here is is a 92% increase under 358, which is other professional services. I only had budgeted in mine, or unless somebody added something.
Water rights, I think we added additional
That's why I didn't.
attorney fees for water rights.
Is that what it is?
Sorry, yeah.
Okay. That threw me off. I didn't know what to say on that one because I didn't put that number in there.
That only comes up once every 10 years, but
Okay.
you have to protect.
It's up.
Okay, so that's where it's at.
So other than your 92%, your 364,
That's buildings, that's actually, all the electric heaters. There's a lot of space heaters in each one of my rooms. PD blower, everything has a electric heater. And they're all starting to fail from the 2007 project.
Okay.
20 couple hundred a pop. And I got like 5 to replace, so that's why that's a big jump. I'm looking at about $10,000 roughly to replace those heaters.
Okay.
And that's why it's up so high. The crib rental is $500. You don't get much equipment with that anymore, so I just bumped that up, because if we rent any kind of equipment from Samuelson's or Severson's, it's gonna be a lot more than $500, so I bumped that up.
well, it's easy to swallow 100% when it goes from $500 to
$1,000.
$1,000,
Exactly,
right?
that's not,
Yeah.
it looks bad, but it's not really.
Yeah, exactly.
Other than that, you're looking at the capital, and it's all explained in the budget for water main replacements, and we're going for DOLA. I think we already applied, right? October 1st? So if we can get some matching money there, would be good.
And that was 3 different projects of water mains, is that right?
Yes,
Correct.
$500,000, just over $500,000.
And if we don't get Dolo, we just decided we would pick the biggest priority, right?
Yep, correct. Which would probably be Baker Drive, which is probably the biggest one.
Okay. It's about $500,000 on its own, right?
Probably close. That's our estimates, about.
So that'd be our match
400
money for the grant
There,
to
yeah.
do all 3, or we do the one.
Or to do the one, right.
Got it. Okay.
Got another one of our storage tanks that was in the sanitary survey. They make improvements on the storage tank, North Glen Erie. That's install a vent on the roof that's bigger, off the top of the tank a lot better, so that you don't get any kind of possible contamination coming in through that vent system because it's too close to the roof. Painting and all that. That's, like I said, that was addressed in the sanitary survey, so we're just trying to take care of those one by one. Where we got, I think, 2 more tanks after that that have been, that have not yet has shown improvements done to them from the storage tank rule, which is a structural engineer has to inspect them every 5 years, and they have to be up to the existing code. We have the west tank and the South Glen area, they'll have to have improvements, but I have them stepped out like 23 and 25, I think, for the next two projects.
So, once we get them all done, then you're gonna have to.
Then you have to rotate that, they have to start all over. Every 5 years, a structural engineer has to look at them and say, okay, what's our new standards? And if there's any changes, hopefully there isn't, you can keep going. But that's something you have to do every 5. New rule. I have 2 pickups in the budget. One's replacing a 2001 Dodge with about 90 couple thousand miles on it, which is on its last legs. The other one's a 2009?
Nine?
Yeah, 9 Ford, which is, from what I've gotten impression from the mechanics out at the North Shop, it's going to require some major work in the near future, and it's also fits that 12-year cycle. So that's just replacing 2 vehicles that are pretty outdated. The one truck I want to add at the water plant or not add, but to replace that 2001, I want to change it over and put a Tommy lift tailgate on it so I can start moving my drums of bleach and LAS to the booster stations safer than trying to put them in a trailer or something like that. So it's more of a safe getting to my booster stations. And the big item is the water plant emergency generator.
You know, we talked about the spring cycle.
Yeah.
I know looks like we didn't factor that grant.
No, we
for the
did not.
Spring cycle.
We looked at it as either coming straight out of, I think, out of the budget in case we don't get that, because we have the spring cycle, we were also looking at doing, what was it, another sewer main?
Well, we have 2
Yeah.
sewer mains next year,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So, we didn't put, I don't think we did factor in the emergency generator for some reason, I don't know what it was, for the,
I think our objective is to apply for the Tier 2 grant to cover half of the cost of that
Right.
generator come spring cycle.
well, see, that was one, no, and the Tier 1 grant was for the Glen Erie tank, that was one thing we did try, we're gonna try too. That was the merge cycle.
Yeah.
Okay.
So is,
So we were looking for a Tier 1 grant for the North Glen Erie tank, which is $200,000 to try to close to match, and then the generator Tier 2 for $500,000.
so this emergency generator that we're looking at, is it replacing an existing generator?
An existing emergency generator that does not power enough to do anything. You can't run the treatment plant with the existing generator. All it does is, if there's an emergency, if there's a power outage, it will shut the valves so I don't flood the basement. It'll turn on the emergency lights, but it cannot power all the equipment you'd have to run.
To make fresh water?
To make finished water, correct. Make potable water. The emergency generator is just for that. The new one, this one here, is to actually, if I'm down for 2 days, 3 days, I can make water. Otherwise, if I go down 2-3 days now, I can't.
Do we not have enough storage to make it 2 or 3 days?
In the summertime, you probably don't, because if you make 3.5 to 4 million gallons in the summer, and I have 7.5 million storage. So if I'm down 2 days, I'm out of water.
So have we been, since the history of the
Yep.
water plant, not had this?
We've never had, the emergency generator has never powered anything. When I first got there,
So what I'm asking is,
oh, yes,
so since 1917 or whenever the city came into about, we haven't had this, and so I'm curious of what's,
no, the emergency generator that's there now, the existing one, they set it up originally, from what I was told, that it would power one high service pump and one roll pump of the old system, which
So you could make water, is what you're saying?
yeah, with
the old system.
With the old system, what you have to remember, the old system only had very little electric footprint. Okay, now you got dissolved air flotation with 3 pumps. You've got every actuator in the plant is controlled by electric. They used to be all air. So in the old days, yeah, they could run limited with that emergency generator. Now you couldn't do anything with it. Okay.
My speculation is it state or federally mandated that we have something like that? Emergency backup for a water plant?
It's a recommendation. I'm not sure if it's mandatory.
It's not mandatory yet.
Plants have agreements with companies that lease those large generators, and they have a hookup on the plant. And so,
So if you go down, they semi-trailer in this generator and plug in and, have we looked at that option? Cost-wise?
I've never looked at it. I don't know who would even, I mean, Rain for Rent might be,
rain for rental and that thing.
that's the only thing I can think of that's even close, but then they don't have, I found out recently, they don't even have all their equipment like down in Rifle, you know, it'd have to come from somewhere else. And if, you know, a lot of people don't just keep generators like that size laying around. So you'd have to be fighting for it if somebody else is using it and they don't, you know, they might not have it, so.
If you can get one.
If you can get one is what I'm saying, yeah, you might not be able to just like drop a hat, I need it today.
But in the current economic state, you might also have a company out there chomping at the bit to have a lease option like that, right? I mean, I could be wrong, but I mean, gas and oil, I mean, I'm assuming it's gonna be a company like that, right?
It'd have-
Gonna
it'd
run a
have to be
big
somebody
generator,
Like Rain for Rent or somebody like that.
right? That would normally work out probably in the oil field or gas field somewhere.
Correct.
Is it worth it just looking at
I
maybe?
mean, I can look at it, yeah. I
Just-
can
just
try to
as- see
what's
what-
out there. Yeah, I haven't heard of anything, like I said, I ran into a recent problem with Rain for Rent, just trying to even get a tank that I
Sure.
was looking for, you know, potable water tank, just
Sure.
something that I could use in the interim up at the Yampa Valley Electric if I had to run that water main, you know, to give them water. They can't even supply a tank, so. And then when we did it was an experience just even when we had the flood at the wastewater plant for Rain for Rent, just trying to get the pumps up here in time to get stuff going, because
Sure.
we had issues there too. So it depends on where they have it stored, where it's at, what's the location. If-
Well, I would think if we had some kind of an agreement with a company that it's gonna
could
cost
check
us
into it.
something, right?
Surely check into it, that's
You're
not
gonna
a
have to
problem.
pay,
I mean, we're gonna pay something, right? But then that would mean that piece of equipment
Just
is
to
readily
keep it
available at any given time, right?
You'd have to have it on standby.
Just curious what that kind of price would look like.
Check into it.
Okay.
and it's,
I bet you it's not a cheap.
But even at $10,000 a month, I'm not saying we should go that route. It would still take almost 10 years to buy $1 million generator,
If you
right?
get that tier one grant, then you're knocking it down by 500,000,
Fair enough.
right?
I got
And
this,
plus you're secure, you know, then your resiliency, you have the ability to make water at any time.
Sure.
The oil field's just real slow right now.
So, yeah, I just wondered.
they might have some of them sitting, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but it's gonna be it's a substantial generator.
I get it. I get it. But
That's the
it's,
problem. No, the oil fields don't run large generators. This is not a small generator. I mean, I got 1,500 KVA transformer, so it's gonna be substantial.
I just had a question for Peter, because I know another, job I had, we had to put an emergency generator in, and they had an agreement with the power company that they could run it and sell your net metering, kind of like you're talking about solar field, and they would buy, for maintenance and run time, because, you have to run them just to make sure they're operating. Can you make some money that way or get some rate back?
If you had to burn fuel,
Well, you gotta burn fuel, yeah, but supposedly it's, you gotta turn the fuel too, so, you can't just sit it there and one day hope it starts.
No, they cycle. Most all emergency generators are set up to run once a week just to, as a safety factor.
So you're just-
Make sure they run them. They'll run,
can we rotate our fuel and sell the energy back is what you're,
yeah.
Right, well, I don't know, it worked out economically for what they were buying, and it made the generator, much, because it was $1 million investment too, a couple years ago, so, they worked with the power company and it made it feasible to happen, so, I don't know, it's something to look into.
Well, anyhow, I will look into the
Okay.
rate for rent or the other options, see
Sure.
what's out there, what's available. But
Sure.
I just never. I mean, for the generator that we're looking at, I'd have to look at it. Like I said, we have a 1,500 KVA transformer, so it's gonna be a substantial size. I'll get you,
well, we have, didn't they?
yeah, it's
analyze that in that
in the solar study.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't remember off the top of my head the size.
950,
KW or something like that? Yeah, I just can't remember off the top of my head. I have to look it up. I just don't have it right here.
You got a generator in your garage?
Yeah, I was gonna say. Tri-State's selling one.
750,000.
You got one in your backyard?
Yeah, and there is one other item left on my budget and capital, and that's just to rebuild a waste pump or replace it because it's an old Worthington and where it's been there for 30, 40 years now, and you can't hardly get that rebuilt anymore.
Okay. Are these, you have other waste pumps, right? You've replaced them in the past already?
I only have 2 waste pumps.
Have you replaced the other one?
No, not yet.
So this is just one of them?
This is number 1, and number 2 will be in 2022.
Do you have a brand that you're gonna go with?
Not right now. We just, Worthington doesn't exist anymore. So
Sure.
We'll get some pump manufacturers in, say, here's what we got.
Give them specifications and.
Specifications.
Sure, okay. Because when we did the raw water pumps, is that accurate? We did those not long ago at the water plant?
We had to replace those from
You
yeah.
kind of went with a new manufacturer
Yeah, the Pentair.
and
yeah. They're working like a champ.
you like them?
Oh, my, yeah.
So hopefully maybe they build these too?
Yeah, I'm sure they do. Yeah, they
Okay.
build all sorts of, I mean, those are vertical turbines, but yeah, these are horizontal split case, but yeah, they do all types of pumps.
Okay. I knew we were in this predicament not long ago and we had to kind of step out of our comfort zone and go,
Go different.
yeah, with a new manufacturer, but
That's
it
because we had
worked out.
so many limitations on
Sure.
the head and everything else from when the river's up high and all that.
Right. Okay.
We'll go to wastewater.
Sure.
Okay. I think Bruce is projecting 3% on that, as per that, yeah. Turn it over to Peter.
Again, this is a rate study. Again, we projected, based on the rate study and the 5-year, 10-year plan to replace equipment. And so, again, conservatively, we come up with 3% per year. Obviously, we're doing the sludge line this year. We also have, I think down the road, there's some other regulations coming that we're not sure what's going to happen, but when they come, we'll have to see what kind of funding, again, we can get with grants and stuff too.
And the wastewater fund is in not as healthy shape as the water fund, to be honest.
You can see the 3% in the years, for the year amounts to about $56,000 is what the 3% would generate. Now I'll turn it back over to you, Mark.
Okay. Like I said, the half position for maintenance is in this, of course, and most of everything in this budget is pretty scaled back to as bare bones minimum. I mean, other than replacing some tires on the jet truck and things like that increased a little bit, but either everything's at 0% or less of an increase. Oh, the building maintenance? Yeah, that's the one that,
Just heaters again?
no, it's not heaters on this one.
That's in your operating budget?
Yeah, that's in the operating budget. And I know what it is, I just can't. Well, that, actually it is, there's 3 unit heaters at $9,000, and then there's, changing LED bulbs in the plant, going away from fluorescent and going to LED conversions. Slowly we're converting over. Just things like that. But there is 3 unit heaters there that are gone bad.
When you say unit heaters, are you talking like the old Resnor type that hang?
Yeah, the hanging ones.
Yeah,
corners of the-
okay.
Yeah. They're usually electric or they're gas. Take your pick, and They just get old and they just don't fire anymore, or they just don't work.
Sure.
We had a lot of electric ones at the water plant that, when we had the upgrade, it started failing not long after, after the warranty periods go out, 2-3 years. So they go through them pretty quick.
Is there a better option out there instead of going back with those unit heaters again? Like a tube heater or,
Like a radiant heater?
Radiant
Yeah.
heaters, yeah. We can look at any different, we
I
try
mean,
to
I'm
get
just
the.
curious.
Yeah, we try to get a better heater that's in there. We've gone away from the manufacturer that a lot of these came from, just to try to get a better unit heater. But like I say, we have so many of them that we have to replace them one at a time. There's no way to run gas in some of the areas, gas heaters.
Sure.
You have to run electric. You just have to change manufacturers if they don't hold up for the most part.
Okay.
Yeah, other than that, that's the biggest item on it. Capital, sewer main, that's going for a tier grant there, tier 1. That's the rehabilitation of that one main in the alleyway, in that grass alleyway. Trailer man diesel pump, in case we do lose power. Right now, we don't have any, in fact, our old Godwin pump is probably, I don't know, 40-some years old plus, which is a, diesel running generator, or a diesel running 4-inch pump. It's getting old and we have no other backup for it. This one here would be a 6-inch, and we could use it to decant water to sludge lagoons. We can use it to plants for emergencies.
Is this big enough to handle the issue we had when,
This is the one we actually got from Rain for Rent when we had the flood. So we were able to keep up with our inflow,
right?
enough to get it up to the ditch, right? That's why we sized it to the same size, because the Godwin couldn't keep up. The little 4-inch couldn't keep up. Emergency generator for the aeration building. We have one for the main building, the influent pump building, or influent building, but we have nothing for the aeration system. That's just to make resiliency there. And the last item on this is lightning protection. It has no lightning protection at the wastewater plant, and with that lightning strike we took, we felt it was advisable to get some kind of lightning protection on all those buildings, because it interferes once you have a hit. You take out all your circuits, you can even take out your generator if it does it right. The transfer switch. So that's my items for budget for 2021.
If you end up replacing the generator at the water plant, or however that works out, would the existing one, could you use it over here at wastewater?
I could check, but I don't think it's big enough either.
Okay.
Because that's the biggest usage, is that aeration building has a higher KV usage, kilowatt usage, and I don't think it could do it. Those blowers draw a lot of amps.
Okay.
But we could check, right?
Yeah, but we could check. I could check. Like I said, that's original. When they put that generator in, I think when they built I guess they called it the new plant, 1981. So it's got that many years on it at least. It's been rebuilt one time by the North Shop Mechanics years ago. I can't remember.
You still put it into service once a week or whatever,
It
like,
still cycles once a week. If we lose power, it's there to come on and shut the valves so I don't
Sure.
flood the basement. That's about it. Like I say, and turn on the emergency lights.
sure.
So it still cycles. So it's still functional. But I will check to see if it's rated,
Sure.
what we can do over there.
Okay. Anything else for Mark? Thank you, sir.
Okay, next up is solid waste. We can do the revenues first. We didn't put any increases in the construction dumpster fees or the solid waste fees, the landfill fees, we're kind of waiting to see what the county's going to do. And so this is just projecting. As you can see, the construction dumpsters did go up more than we anticipated this year. Of course, we didn't anticipate COVID and people staying home and clean their houses out. So I don't know if that'll happen next year, so we're a little conservative on that.
Sure.
And then, of course, the collection fees, we didn't propose any increases there. And then the landfill fees, again, we're waiting to hear on that. And so between now and when we finally adopt it, maybe we'll have a better idea where we're at.
Do we have dumpsters at the power plant now? At the outage?
Yeah.
They got a big one coming up in March, right? Is it March? Yeah. So it should help a little bit with the dumpsters. for
Yeah.
sure.
So,
Yeah, I saw quite a few over there. For abatement? Yep.
Spoke with the commissioners. It sounds like the landfill fees will take an increase for 21. So we'll have to go back and factor that in, and see what it looks like in terms of the rates as we pass it through.
so, Bruce, you said you did factor in an increase, right?
No.
you Did not, okay.
not.
We're waiting.
Right, okay. No, that makes sense. That's why I was gonna ask.
What are they alluding to?
We'll have to go back, so we're going up $5 a ton, and so I'll have to go back and look at that and see what that looks like.
Right.
It's reasonable. Wow.
I think the plan was originally to hold off on any rate discussion until after the first of the year to talk about some of the adjustments we were looking at for construction dumpsters and that sort of thing, but we may have to initiate something, at least for the landfill rate here.
Keep coming up.
Well, you're projecting your reserve to go down 300,000, basically. So,
Peter, did they tell you what the landfills are going to? I can't remember off the top of my head.
$5 a ton.
A ton? Then they said something about, but for out of county, it's going up more than that, $10 or $15 a ton. Then if I remember right, they're doing like $50 or $75 or something crazy for a mattress.
For what?
For mattresses,
Oh,
I guess they're going up crazy because they can't bury them, like they somehow work their way to the surface.
Surface, I guess, yeah.
That's something we'd have to
I
incorporate
can
into,
understand that, but
you can't what?
that's something we'd have to incorporate into those changes we potentially make.
yeah, for sure.
You know, once we get all that stuff set down and set in stone.
I can't remember. I mean, don't quote me on 50, but it was a huge.
a lot,
I think
yeah.
It's $15 now, and it was a huge jump because they can't get rid of them. The wires and the springs just get scattered, hooked up on their tracks, and
We're gonna have to go back to water beds.
Thinking back to 70s. Water beds and mustaches.
Without the baffles.
Waterbed and a color TV as a kid. Come on.
If you only had 4 channels.
With tinfoil.
We had a water bed, but we couldn't afford the water to fill it. Yeah.
Well, since we were on solid waste, did we put off our survey we were gonna do about recycling, or where?
that was pretty funny.
No. We did do a survey. I think we were gonna,
Right, we were gonna
Enhance that
resample again and try it online instead of downloading it and bringing it down.
it's just.
See if you
gotten
can
back
increase the
with all
sample
these other
size.
Projects, yeah, we do need to get back to that.
Not saying we can afford it, I just wanna know,
Yeah.
yeah.
So no additional employees or staff or solid waste?
That's two.
Says 2 extra, right?
We actually recently hired another operator. And then one of the existing operators that had some issues that we sorted out basically filled the part-time position as he didn't have a CDL in the meantime, which left us shorthanded. And part of the other issue was we were not getting the CAPS help that we typically had gotten in the past because of the COVID stuff. So we were way understaffed. You start throwing vacations and sick leave and stuff in there, and Rod's vacation time's maxed out, and every time he puts in vacation, he ends up being at work because he can't leave. So we added technically 2 full-time positions, but one was kind of supplemented by the part-time funding that was already in the budget. So and we're actually, community service is coming back around again finally here this fall, and we've had one employed for the last month or so, keeping him busy. It helps with being able to repair dumpsters that are sitting around and rotting out. We maintain them pretty well. They start rotting out. We put new bottoms and new grab bars and lids and so forth, and repaint them and try to recycle them the best we can. So I think that position kind of pays for itself. Plus it helps having the community service person come in and help us. He's actually even been riding on the rear load as we've been down a couple because of sickness and vacation and so forth. So
Now, are we running the rear load again?
yes.
Good.
Yeah, we have been.
Yeah, a couple, 3 weeks now or something?
Yeah, it's probably been a month or probably a month.
But we didn't, well, we never ended that with we're charging or what we're charging or,
No, that's what Peter was alluding to, that we may potentially address some of these things after we figure out what the rates are and try to get the dumpster rates and everything addressed at one time rather than making a little change here and a little change there. So that's kind of tabled for now. So
well, I think there's confusion out there because the article ran in the paper, we're raising rates and, you know, and we're not running the rear load. And somebody asked me the other day, hey, I saw the railroad truck, are you picking up that way again? And I said, I'm not sure.
we are picking up with the rear load as long as people are utilizing their cans and filling it up. You know, if cans are partially filled, then that's something we're taking into consideration, as well as the other day we had a customer had construction debris. You can tell they'd just been throwing stuff out their door and had it piled at the end of their driveway. And one of the drivers said, we can provide you a dumpster if you would like, but we're not picking up that mess. So, you know, as long as it's not taken advantage of. Yeah, it needs to be bundled and stacked nicely, and they're really good at picking it up, but they're not just going to come by and pick up a mess at the end of your driveway. Another question that came up was about leaves, since it's that time of year, and as long as stuff's properly bagged, we're picking up leaves and limbs too. So. And that is part of the other reasoning for that full-time position, is because we are running that rear load. So that truck's pretty darn busy, especially utilizing community service even to help support it. So.
Thanks. New truck, huh?
Yeah, with reaching my memory bank here a little bit, but one of the newer front load that we have, I believe, is 6 years old, and already has the hours that we would typically trade it in on at 10 years. These trucks are getting, the front loads are getting utilized a lot more because that's the majority of, besides now that we're doing the rear load, the majority of the service is provided with the front load, and they get a lot of hours on them. And my mind just went blank, but the intent is to, what happened was they had a new front load, and the old one was having issues, and it got kind of overutilized. Well, it messed up our 10-year cycle for replacing those trucks. So now we have a new truck with a lot of hours and an old truck that's ready to be traded in. So we are requesting this truck, and then we talked to the trash department. We're gonna have to make sure we are utilizing, we want to keep our old truck, not trade it in, because you get pennies on the dollar for them. So we will have two mainline trucks and a backup, and we want to make sure that we do not put too many hours on this new truck and end up in the same scenario we are in right now with a 6-year-old truck that's ready to be traded in with over 10,000 hours. And part of that is due to we've been adding a lot more accounts. So in that regard, we're putting more hours on due to more accounts and more dumpsters that we have to service. So it's time to have one in backup. So we will keep our older one and continue to rotate them to make sure we do not put too many hours on this new truck and end up in a scenario where we have to do this again, where we have to get a new truck and before the 10-year cycle for these trucks, because they beat themselves to death. I mean, with the way they crush and compact.
It takes a year to get a truck anyway.
And that is the other deal is right now, if we ordered a truck today, we may not have it until 2022.
Right.
Because, and it's all goes back to the COVID and the truck assemblies being way behind schedule. And so that's the other reason. Thanks for reminding me of that.
So how do you allocate this, Bruce? You can't allocate it in 21, or you have to put it here and then transfer it to 22, if that's the case?
Well, you gotta pay for the truck before they come bring it.
Well, you pay for the part of it, cab and chassis.
Yeah.
Right.
And these trash trucks have always been that way. They've been a year out. I mean,
Yeah.
regardless of COVID.
Yeah, I think the money would have to be there, and then we don't pay for it until we receive it. So it just have to roll over.
I think that's a good idea, to keep that old truck, because it seems like those trucks are always breaking down for hydraulic leaks to whatever.
It is. They're in pretty frequent. And actually, this summer when we were talking about getting rid of the rear load routes and that discussion, a rear load was actually slated to be replaced instead of the front load. But because of the issues that I brought up, and originally we were thinking that we were going to back down on rear load pickups, we didn't see any point of getting a new rear load. But if we maintain the schedule, there's a good chance next year we get a front load this year. Next year we'd be looking at getting a rear load. So our cycle kind of got a little jockeyed up, but we were just trying to do the best thing with what our schedule can handle with the pickup with these new trucks. There's no reason to buy a truck that you're not going to utilize.
Are we still doing the inspecting of the other trash trucks in town, making sure that their tags are up to date on no leaks and all that we passed 2 years ago, I believe?
Got a head nod over there.
Jerry might be able to answer that question.
Well, we don't have anything to do with inspection.
Liz is saying yes over here.
We make sure that they've got the sticker.
I know our trucks go in.
Our mechanics are looking them over, though, according to our ordinance.
Not our mechanics. We actually get them inspected.
Right, by a third party.
Yes. As far as what competition is doing, I can't answer for that. I would just, but our trucks are definitely getting inspected.
I thought we passed an ordinance.
If
when
you
Randy
pick
was
up trash
here,
in this town and you're,
you have to get it inspected and they have to turn it into the city, and that's what you're saying, they are getting it done, right?
What is that, just for my own information? Is that just a fee that goes to the city? For like Twin Enviro getting a truck and,
A year? For a year, or? So we were having those trucks come in, they're leaking hydraulic oil all over, and so.
Leaking
We passed
trash.
an ordinance saying that, I think it was an ordinance.
yeah,
That said that they had to have it inspected, a CDOT pretty much inspection on those.
gotcha.
Regular.
I know we are doing ours.
yeah.
Okay, thanks.
We're just helping you by forcing your competitor to do the same thing within the city limits.
Perfect. We could jack those rates up a little bit. And then the other item, the $55,000 that he's on is the budget that appears to be in here almost annually for maintenance and upkeep and recycling or refurbishing our inventory for roll-offs and construction dumpsters. And we did not end up buying any construction dumpsters this year. We talked about it, and then about the time we were considering pulling the trigger, they started coming back. So I'm kind of glad we held off on those. But we did order 200 more 90-gallon cans, and we've made a couple orders of 300-gallon cans, and those went out pretty quick. But we have a few more on hand. We probably won't put another order in for those until next year, but it's amazing you put an order in on cans, how much those things cost.
Those 300-gallon cans are saviors.
They're pretty sweet, other than they don't have, which you can get wheel assemblies for them, but if you don't have the wheels, they're kind of a booger, but for in town. But they're perfect if you have an alley or something that you can hide them in.
Okay, anything
We
else?
probably should start checking them for homeless people.
Well, the 300, they're probably living in it.
It'd be a community in those things.
Anything else for Trevor?
What I call a tiny home.
Thank you.
Oh, no.
Bruce, are you gonna start off again, or are we just turning it right over to Dan?
Dan?
Again, we took over the museum the first of the year, and so we created a fund for that because it's all of revenues that go into that have to go towards the museum. And of course, the general fund is transferring 300,000 in there to help it out. And then, so Dan projected the revenues, and I'll let him get into that and the expenditures. So this is what this fund is set up for.
Okay. Just a really brief statement about a couple of things. There was 142,915.84 transferred over from Moffett County. That's the basically the fund that was finally, and that finally happened, I think, like a month ago, the last little bit. So almost 143,000. The increases, as far as the one part goes, the part-time was one of the issues. It was probably necessary to increase those wages a couple of dollars an hour to get that lined up more with what the city of Craig paid compared to Moffett County. And there is some increase in there as a potential to do a 2-day person that we've had traditionally in there that we didn't. That would be one of, and so it's sort of the wage pieces that tie in there. You go back down through there, the advertising piece is down there. It was at 25%. This last year, all of that was paid for largely by LMD funds for the billboards and the different types of things that we had. That hasn't been appropriated back into the budget per se. That was money that came in and it hasn't been put back in. And then down there, that great big 500% one is insurance. The county never bills any independent, their departments don't really pay for that liability insurance. That's done through a different piece. You don't even see that. And that's one piece that we were totally unaware of. That's the reason for that one big piece of increase on that one. So everything's really been insured, double insured all year, because the county, I think we're getting close to having those transition documents ready. Hopefully it's something that can happen in October to get that stuff transferred to the city. And I think the capital piece that's down in there is actually that 25,000 was for that mural, so that's not in there.
I didn't know if it was going to be all spent this year into next year, but Dan said it's going to be spent all this year, so we don't need the 25 in there for next year. Okay.
Right. So that's out. And then the revenue piece is the piece that we were down in most of all those revenue pieces this year due to COVID being that. We'll have several pieces online. If we go down to do our major fundraising piece, that'll kick off here probably next month. And that's been coming in already. It's become habit for some donors to go ahead and do that, which is really cool to have happen. And so a number of those others, under normal circumstances, nothing was normal about this year, I don't think, would increase this next year. So most of those revenue line items will be increasing for 2021 under normal issues. And we'll have gotten a lot of that operational piece and changing some things taken care of for that year as well. I don't know if there's anything else that comes up with questions that you might have. Didn't want to make it a long time. And that great big numbers insurance again, I assume.
Would you talk about donations in 21? What's happening there?
Okay, donations. So the walk-ins, there's very likely that those will be higher. We were trying to be really conservative, not knowing what's going to happen this next year. Those have had certainly an uptick for the walk-in that we say in the very beginning. And then the fundraising piece, I think there's a really good chance it'll be significantly higher than the 8,000 that we budgeted for it. And the concessions is basically our gift shop. That'll be up significantly as well. And then the rents and royalties, which is probably our mineral piece, that sort of stabilized because the prices were terrible at the beginning of the year. And it's probably going to come in fairly close to about 8,000 for this year instead of the 25. And then probably fairly consistent with next year if everything works out okay, that'll be the same. We used to have actually leases with oil and gas leases, and I'm not sure those might be a thing of the past in Colorado, to be honest, with what we're dealing with the industry as well as sage grouse and as well as regulation and about 2 or 3 other issues that come out of Denver that really strangle that little issue as far as doing that. We are looking at doing quite a few exhibits this year. They really aren't in there. That's one of the things that we're really going to try to do some fundraising for, to not necessarily use our revenue from the city piece to pay for those. That'll be additional.
Ben, what have you thought of as far as trying to secure either an endowment type funding or creating that so, to increase some more revenue on that side?
We had something like that once upon a time, and it sort of went south on us. That's been quite a period of years ago that we did that. And frankly, our mineral funds sort of ended up being that because that was extremely a good fundraiser. It brought in a lot of money for a period of time, and that looks like that's largely over. He doesn't know about it yet, but Paul and I are going to try to schedule a meeting with Peter here in the next day or two. Has a little bit to do with our bylaw discussion, and what's the best way to sort of go forward with that. And if we were to go into the area that you're talking about, it might be better not to have that. It might be better to just sort of start over, because it's something we certainly need to do. For sure, we have to do that. We just had a donation really recently, and we actually used one of the nonprofits in town to accept that so that we could turn around and sell it. And we didn't have to have the city council involved in having to sell something, because we took it just strictly so we could sell it, because the donor had given it to us for that purpose. And we got the checks in the mail, so it's $800. There was a donation to do that for, which was cool. We never sold cemetery lots before. That's a first. But, you know, it did, and yeah. It's and the guy wanted very directly to have it go to the museum so we could use it for a fundraiser. It was very specific. So preserving the Last Frontier is the name of the nonprofit that took that so that we could do it. We just got the check a day or two ago, so we can reverse that. So we come up with different ways to raise money. That's one of the more unique ones that we've done. But we need to do what you're talking about, Chris.
You guys don't have a foundation you can directly take.
No. We did 20 years ago, but it's going to take some So before we hit that, I wanted to get everything reallocated and moved into the city's ownership so that we really were working with one entity versus somebody debating on what was where. And that's just taken longer than what I anticipated, for sure.
Talk about your capital, Dan.
Which one? Yeah, and I think that's out, because we didn't know which way that was going to go in for the mural, so that's going to come out. So,
5,000 in for 21.
yeah, that should be just gone, because we didn't know which way it was going to be spent, if it was going to spend in this year or next, and it's going to be this year.
Anything else for Dan? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Bruce, I'm guessing this is you.
Go ahead, Bruce.
I'll start it and then hand it over to Peter. The medical fund is where we transfer the dollars in from the different departments to pay for our health insurance, vision, life insurance, dental insurance. So that all goes into this fund, and then the premiums are paid out of this to CBT. And then there's some administrative costs that go out. So when we got the renewal, and so if you look at the other big spreadsheet, you can see the top part here is this year is where it's about, you're talking just over $2 million a year for all that coverage. And the employees pay part of that, and then the city picks up the balance of that. Well, next year, there was a 6% increase, but then we're going to get this, I call it a rebate, COVID rebate, right after the first of the year. So that drops that 6% down to 4%. And then we were looking at, okay, how do we do that? And so Peter come up with a solution, so I'll turn over to Peter now.
Okay, so we backed out the COVID rebate from the increase, which left us about $82,500, $546 to be exact. And we split that between the employees and the city. So we were able to reduce with the rebate, reduce their contribution increase. So their monthly increase, if you look in the bottom left-hand corner of the spreadsheet, you'll see that singles employees and spouse, employee and children, and the family increase. That's what we're asking the employees to take on as an increase beginning with the January premium increases next year.
And the alternative to this is that the year before we went from PPO 3 to 4, we could go to PPO 5, but then it's considered a high deductible plan. And we could wipe some of this cost out, but then your deductible goes really high.
Sure.
And your copays. And so when Peter was looking at this, he kind of devised, he said, well, if we're going to get this refund, maybe we'll split it with the employees and stay where we're at. And then last year, Peter came up with where if employees want to opt out, they have coverage someplace else, that saves us. And then we'll maintain that increase in deductible. If they hit that increased deductible, then they'll refund them out of this fund for that deductible between PPO 3 and PPO 4. And so we'll continue with that also.
So we're still buying the employees' experience level back down to PPO 3 if they hit their maximum out of pockets and their deductibles, which is a really nice feature. We've been able to keep the premiums down, and we've been able to offer the employees the same deductible, even though we have a plan that has higher published deductibles. And statistically, that only affects generally about 5 to 6% of the employee base. And so far, those statistics have held up since we've been doing this, and I was doing this previously. It always falls in that range. So looking at the increase that you would have paid if you kept with PPO 3, you would have paid $150,000 more. Our actual experience is more like $30,000 by buying the deductibles down and taking the higher plan. So it's legal, and it provides a $100,000 benefit to us.
And so you're saying, what, roughly out of, and I might be off, I thought we were in 85, 90 range for city employees that we're talking about here? Is that roughly right?
About 90 or so.
So you're talking this affects 4 or 5 of them? When you say 4 to 5%?
Less than 10.
Less than 10?
Yeah.
Sure. It seems reasonable to me. I get it. An increase is an increase, but even for a family, $47 a month isn't terrible.
That's fine.
To keep reasonable insurance.
$4 a year.
Yeah.
38 to $47, depending on what you're doing.
Yeah.
Have we looked, and I don't know anything about it, but have we looked into partnering with the
Yeah.
county
The school district?
on what they're doing? I mean, I know everybody at the beginning when they had their own clinic,
Who does the county have?
so I don't know what their
Who's
plan
their
is, but
provider?
They have their own clinic
Oh,
where
yeah.
employees can go in for free. And everybody talked, when they first came open, it was the worst thing in the world. Now, when you talk to their employee, most of their employees, they think it's the best thing in the world. I don't know. I didn't know if it was something that we could save costs. Obviously, it saved them money by doing that.
They asked us to go in some time ago when they did that. They said our cost would be $80 to $90 per employee per month, if I remember right. And we were paying the hospital $20 a month for that same service.
But now we're not doing that.
No, we're not doing that. But there is a cost to it. It's not free. It's free to employees, but there's a cost to it.
Agreed,
Yeah.
agreed.
Yeah.
But
And-
if you're paying, if we're charging $47 extra for some of these employees, and there was a way that we could bring that cost down and it not cost the employees anything, and it only cost us $20 a month or 40, whatever that came out to be, I don't know. And you throw in,
We did have that conversation with Dan and Paul when they first came over. And you've been on our plan for a while. How do they compare?
The plan, there's one part that we pay more, the city does. It costs more than what it did. I think the baseline, and I was on the insurance board for the county for like 10 years, and I tried to get some basics, and I haven't done it this year, but I think their
Yeah.
It's like the city had how many years ago when they were self-insured? I'm looking at Bruce, but quite a while. But overall, and it would be easy to find that out. Anybody can ask that. And I think it's just significantly higher per employee compared to what the city's paying. When that really came down to it, it would be pretty easy to find that out. Lynette would know that really quickly, what that is. But I think that's what I noticed when we finally got into that last year. The city just doesn't have near the money into per employee as what the county does.
You know, we can check into that, Tony, but the plan we're currently involved in is actually a trust, and they combine us with how many other communities? We're in the medium community level. So for communities at our population, there's a range of 7,500 to 20,000 or something like that. All communities in that, we're pooled together to kind of help streamline our rates and experience. If one of us has a bad experience, we get pooled so that kind of eliminates some of the increase we might otherwise have. And so far it's worked. I mean, we have, they claim that we will never see an increase of greater than 7% on the, generally, I mean, it could happen, but last year we had 3%, 3.5%, and this year is 6%, but with the rebate, we're at 4%. So, I mean, we're pretty happy with the increases we're getting compared. You would think at some point insurance companies wouldn't have to increase your rates any further, but that doesn't seem to be the case.
Right.
For sure. Yeah, what world are you from? We haven't seen that in how many years?
Right. It doesn't
Or if
matter
you
what
don't
you
use it,
or
you should
never.
give it back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't get, especially like car insurance. You don't get in an accident, you get your money back.
So, and just as a kind of along that train of thought, has anybody ever community-wide gone to the bigger employers and just, I mean, is there any benefit to that? It sounds like the city's already in a pool, so maybe that's our benefit. Maybe the county, I mean, they're self-insured, I guess. We used to be that way, I remember that at the city. It got too expensive, right, was the problem.
Well, part of the problem is we weren't passing some of that on. We kept absorbing and absorbing. We did increase deductibles, we did increase co-pays, and that pushed it up against the wall, and it just hit.
Well, and I think it's not, we have better insurance in the county, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's pretty much been that way for a long time. The only place that you're gonna find better insurance in the city is you went to the power plant or to some of the coal mines, and not all the coal mines now, but I was just thinking, we were always talking about joint service, if there was a way that you could save everybody something and benefit the employees and benefit city, county, school districts.
yeah.
It's something always worth looking into. I mean, that was my only
Does,
question or comment or
do
whatever.
county employees contribute to their policies?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think they probably do a little bit less. I think that's the main piece. But the insurance board with the counties worked really hard to try to keep, until this year, I don't know what they're doing this year, to try to keep that employee piece down as much as they could, because they hadn't had raises in a long time, so they were trying to keep that as economically as they could. It'd be pretty easy to ask that question. I mean,
Thanks, Ryan, are you on it? Are you on the county or the city? You are on the counties.
They're about the same as the cities.
I think it's even the same insurance carrier. I think everything's pretty much the same. My card's it just has a different policy number than it did the year before.
They went to a new benefit manager because they're doing a different thing with the rates, where the way they negotiate the rates is different. The big cost savings with the clinic is, instead of, when you're self-insured, instead of paying for all the office visits, they calculated it out and said you could hire someone on staff and pay for the medication and do it yourself. It was cheaper than paying for each office visit for someone to go in and get a strep culture and antibiotic, or the monthly blood pressure medication. So those routine things, there was quite a bit of the cost savings doing it that way, because you're not paying for the office visit. You just have basically someone you're contracted through that's doing it for you. So it's a lot of savings for the county to do it that way.
Well, and they made the statement at the meeting, Lynette did, that they are having more employees go on routine checkups than ever before, when they had to set an appointment and go through all those. And they're catching things
Sooner.
way prior than before they have a heart attack or before They've caught even cancer patients at the very beginning and so that was their big selling point on it, was that they weren't having to call the hospital, set an appointment, go sit in the lobby for 2 hours waiting for a doctor to come and see you. You schedule it online, you walk in, you do it. And so, that's all I was thinking, is that, it sounded like to me it was beneficial for the employee, but if it doesn't work out financially, and I get it, right?
If you're self-insured, it works out really well because you knock that off of basically the total amount you're going to pay every year, because you're taking all that routine stuff and trying to do it at your own cost.
And if we did it and the other municipalities in our pool didn't, we wouldn't have the benefit potentially. So unless we went that route of self-insured.
Yeah. I mean, because when I was with the state, our premiums were $800 a month. So, yep.
Well, I guess that's a discussion item, is how does the council feel about splitting that, after the rebate, splitting the cost increase for the PPO4 plan? It's basically a 2% increase for the employee.
And that's what your numbers in orange highlighted represent, right?
Yeah, that's with the increase in it.
That's what the increase,
That's what.
the 2% increase.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did we have a cost of living increase to the budget
I
this
think
year?
that's where he's talking next. isn't it?
Yeah, that's where we're headed next.
We're headed
Oh,
next.
sorry. Jumping the gun. I apologize.
Well, I think it's realistic to assume that in today's world, you're gonna have increase in medical costs. I don't like passing them on as much as anything else, but, the city is splitting the increase. So I think it's fair and equitable.
Well, we kept them flat last year, and this year we're asking,
Well, you increased the deductible last year, so it was flat with the buy down,
right,
so.
we took the plan from PPO3 to PPO4.
Right.
Right.
At a slight increase, and then we buy the deductible back, so yeah, it keeps the employees relatively where they were in our costs.
Personnel Committee, which, Andrew, you didn't make that one, I don't think. I didn't. But we discussed all this and went through all these numbers, and it seemed like a fair way to handle it, so.
Yeah.
Okay. So going into 2021, Bruce is prepared on page 55. Well, actually, why don't we start there? I guess that's a good place to start. The top two references for COLA increase show you the three-month totals. And we looked at the bottom, you average the Colorado Office of State Planning and Budgeting. If you average all three of those quarters, you come up with about exactly 2%, which is the increase. And to offset that, if you go to the next page, you turn that, yeah. Bruce has factored that 2% in, which comes out to, I'm looking at the wrong sheet. Comes out to 142,315 total increase to offer a 2% COLA increase to the employees.
Across the board, everybody.
Yeah.
Basically offsets the 2% we're raising their medical.
Well, medical costs are 2%.
That'll be another 2%.
Okay.
Right, yeah, 2% of the.
Well, yeah, what you're saying though, yes.
I'm just saying we're,
Offsetting.
it's gonna, yeah,
Well, it'll more than.
more than offset, right?
Right.
Yeah, right. On your, yeah, based off your, yeah, exactly.
Because it's actually, the total increase the employees will share in is about 41,000. If you add it all up, here we're talking about a total increase of 142,000.
Sure.
So it works out to about 30%.
Right.
So we looked at the 2% COLA increase, and we also, if you turn that page, actually, no, I'm sorry, we didn't include that, did we? The,
Put it in theirs, let me pull it
you
up.
might have the sheets in front of you. So, bonus payment in January. It works out at roughly 2%. Not quite. It's bonuses in January of $1,500 per employee. With the tax package, you see $1,701.75. If they've been here 5 years or less, it's $1,000 increase. Tax package, it puts it $1,134 as a cost to the city. And if they're here 1 year or less, it's a $500 bonus with a tax package, $567.25. Total cost is $120,257 is one option to look at in lieu of the COLA increase. So obviously the COLA increase continues year after year. The
Yeah, so that's a
bonuses-
big difference, right?
Yep,
Is that something, if we put it in this year, we pay for it every year to come,
right.
right?
We offered a 3% last year, and we kind of buy down the medical plan last year, so we kept things with the, we kept things where the employees actually realized a full 3% increase.
So they get a COLA and a step, depending where they're at in the schedule, right?
That's right.
So it's not just the 2%, they get a step increase as
Right.
well.
If
Right.
they're,
Bruce
If they're
also
eligible.
Yeah.
included, we didn't detail the step increases for next year. I guess we could do that too. I mean, you could take a look and see how many employees are actually in the step program and what those total increases add up to be.
I think, and I've always advocated, I think, for this, that with everything going on, power plant getting ready, you know, the talk of that, the coal mines, all this stuff, I've always said we're always competing with them. Now you could say, well, we're not competing with them, but I kind of like it when we have a job opening and you get 60-some applicants.
Yeah, right.
Because it's a place that you want to work, and it's a place of security, it's a place of those things, especially in a time, if you're an employer, you know you can't find employees, especially quality employees. And now you have a place here that, you know, we're doing well, it's not like we're hurting right now, and I feel like every time you benefit the employee, they work harder for you.
Benefit the business, right?
And especially if they feel like they're wanted, needed, all those things, and they're getting compensated for that, I just feel like you never go wrong. And if there's somebody that's not stepping to the plate, then that's the department head's job to replace. I mean, this needs to be a place that there's tons of employees out there right now that are looking for good quality, high-paying jobs. And this, I would think that the city's goal would be to be the number one employer, to be the one that everybody's fighting to work for. And I think this is a good way of rewarding those employees that are doing well. And, you know, there's going to maybe in a year or two, we can't do that. But right now we can. And I think this is a great thing.
To support that, I've hired 3 people, and it's hard to get interest for an experienced CDL driver at $18 and change an hour.
For sure. For sure.
You end up having to start them up the step schedule a little bit further.
So you talking the 2% COLA, or what are you, and the step, or Tony?
Well, the step, I don't think you can, I can't mix the two, because if a guy's
Right.
earned a step, he deserves a step and a 2%. You can't say, well, because you're getting a step increase, you're not getting the 2%. That step deal
No,
needs
that's not
thrown
what
out
I-
of there. That's in part of their employee.
No,
deal.
that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, you know, both of them you're recommending. The
Yeah, I mean-
2% and the additional they get too, yeah.
Right, 100%. Because the additionals, because they've been here so many years, that shouldn't even be in our conversations. They deserve that for being here, putting in their time. The 2% is for everybody across the board to say, thank you for working hard, and we want to be the best employer.
Yeah, I thought I thought your question was, are you advocating the 2% COLA increase, Tony?
Right.
Or the bonus increase?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. The STEP program stays in place unless you guys.
It's already established. yeah.
Unless you suspend it for some reason.
And I'm not an employee, so the employees that are in this room should speak more than we should, but to me, the 2% is a better deal than the one-time gift. Now, I get the gift, and, you know, I'm leaving, so I'm for both of them. And give them a bonus and an increase, and make sure all the employees hear me saying this, that I feel like,
You've already been elected.
yeah, I'm good, man.
I don't know what your,
County, I'm coming to give you raises or whatever. But I think that,
No. I kind of like where you're coming from, Tony.
Me too.
but if you don't want to give them the big bonus, I feel like bonuses are always rewarded. And maybe you get in trouble for this, but you give bonuses for employees that go up over and beyond. Now, you say, well, that's not fair. Well, one guy working harder than the other guy is not fair either, getting paid the same amount. So, in saying that, I'm for the 2% increase and a bonus, but that's
And what you said, the step system we got in place does that, where we have annual reviews now, and they're up for a step increase if they perform. Don't have to give it to them, but if they perform, then they get it.
I didn't know that. I thought it was just a year deal, so that's even better. I think it's a great deal.
You know, I'd like bonuses, you say as a reward, but is it measurable on something we achieve throughout the year? I mean, I don't know, satisfaction rating with the citizens or making budgets or by department, but everybody gets a bonus for the last how many years, you know? It comes to be expected. It's not something that everybody's working together to get. You know, am I clear on that?
Yeah, we have an implemented performance management plan. Everybody gets reviewed each year.
Right.
Like Bruce said, the step increases also, you know, are a determination that each supervisor makes based on the performance and the ability to achieve those next milestones. The bonuses are really factored on tenure. We didn't look at performance here. And they're kind of a COLA and kind of an offset to help with the increase in the medical payments, as well as help offset some of the COLA increase that they're going to experience or have experienced over the course of the year.
So what was the bonus? How much, can you, am I not reading this right? What,
That's on page 57.
Yeah, Tony, it's,
so what would the 2% give an average employee at an average rate per year?
Let's see. Didn't have it calculated, but I was gonna say
what's,
what's the average, about 40
47, right? 49.
is what I was thinking. Times 2%, it's about $940.
A year.
Yeah, for a year, for the whole year.
And then the average bonus is going to be around $1,000 after
it's greater than that. Most people are going to get 1,500,
1,500.
yeah,
Before tax, yeah.
before tax.
Before tax, yeah.
Now, Bruce, on this page 57, you do have where it has the bonuses and the 1,500 and 1,000, has 2018 bonuses. Is that what we really gave in 2018, or is that what we would be giving in 2021? On this sheet that you have in front of us. It actually, on the date, it says 2018 bonus at the top.
Oh, I probably didn't get
Okay.
that title changed.
I mean, it says
Yeah.
2021, but so that would be the bonuses we'd be giving.
Yes, it should have been changed,
No problem.
2021.
Okay.
Yes.
So that,
Did, Bruce, are these grossed up?
The ones up here?
Yes.
Yeah.
They're grossed up to 1,500, so an
So-
employee actually gets 1,500?
Oh, no, they'd have to, retirement and
2% raise.
taxes would come out of that.
I can live with that.
Yes.
Okay.
So the 1,500 is this,
I mean,
if you gave them 1,500, then from there you have to deduct 6% for
I know we're
a
set.
pension and then of course withhold for
The total
taxes,
cost to the
withholding.
City, yeah.
Yeah, what you see up here is the city cost,
Well, I'm just saying,
but the employee, I don't show what, like the $1,500, you gotta take the rest of the deductions out. What they actually take home.
you get a-
Right.
you get a start for 15 every year for 15 years.
roughly.
Time, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, if it's reported, it may knock you on the tax bracket.
Yeah, I gotta see this.
Security, because I'm never gonna see it, so they just let me off.
Right.
Retirement age is 91.
That's ridiculous. I mean, we put these bonuses out, they should just get those bonuses instead of having to give a cut out.
So at the bottom then, Bruce, the 2% COLA would be that 142, 161,
Yeah,
and then the 122.57 would be those bonuses?
right.
Okay.
Yeah, what I did is calculated the, Peter said, let's see what that looks like for the bonuses, and then I threw the 2% and see what that would look like. And so I kind of showed him what that kind of would come out to be.
We also thought about the employer council survey that we did in 2018. You know, where it compared all of our salaries to other cities, and so of course, we factored in that into the new STEP program, and hopefully we'll get to a point where we're actually tracking to other cities. We're actually kind of above most communities our size at this point.
So you guys adjusted the steps according to that recommendation already? So this has a 2% adjustment or 1% adjustment in the steps already?
The steps would be adjusted with a 2% COLA increase, yeah. Everything would be, and I don't think I
No.
don't think these steps have been adjusted.
No, they haven't yet.
So they will stay this, you're not adjusting the chart, you're just adjusting the employee.
Yeah, right now, this chart here, I haven't put the 2% in, but I did put the 2% in the budget so we'd have an idea what that would,
Right. But he'll be making. Well, I would be, I mean, I'll just throw it out there. I'd be comfortable with a 2% raise. I'd be comfortable going that way. I don't know how the rest of council feels about it.
I'm comfortable with 2%.
Yeah, and I
Fella.
wouldn't be opposed to that, but not both,
Yeah, I
one or the
Yeah.
other.
I guess, yeah, just trying to be fiscally responsible. Can't argue with that.
One-time increase on the bonus? So,
But-
yeah, so, I mean, I don't know why we couldn't do both this year while we have the money, you know what I mean? Because they're probably gonna spend the money back into most of the local economy anyway, therefore helping, you know what I mean, it's gonna come back to a lot of the local businesses. So I can't sit here and be opposed to that while we have the money, for that, you know what I mean? So, yeah, I don't see why we can do both.
And I would be willing to even drop that from $1,500 to $750.
Do a flat bonus and
Do a flat bonus across the board at $750 plus a 2% raise. That cuts that number in half.
Right, that takes us to 60,000.
That takes
Yeah.
you to just $60,000 in bonuses for the whole community and saying, hey, giving you a 2% raise and we're gonna give you a little Christmas spending money. I mean,
I'd probably meet you in the middle and say like 1,000 on the bonus and keep the 2%. You know, I think that, because that's still gonna save.
The first time I've ever heard of it. I'm sorry, I might need some help.
I know, I do that to my boss the other day. I was like,
Yeah.
you better write this down because I'm gonna agree with you right now.
Business must be good for him. He's getting bonuses, you know?
We're in a workshop, but I second and,
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I would go with the 1,000 on the on this as well.
Wow. Both of you guys.
We need to hear from Ryan and Steve.
Well, Bruce can factor that in. We can take a look at it when the books are published, and if we want to make that adjustment, we can do that.
Like to hear from the rest of council?
I'm good with both too. I think the 2%, if you had to pick between the two, the 2% is the better way to go because
Sure.
with a bonus month, you get hit pretty hard with taxes.
Right.
Typically knocks you up sometimes to the top end of ordinary income. So I know that from getting bonuses, you get hit hard on taxes when you get that. You don't get most of it.
More like a penalty.
It ends up taxing you like 45%. It's insane.
Right.
Yeah.
If you spread it over 12 months, you don't get the tax hit as.
Right.
Right.
So, but I would be okay with getting, if we came up with a flat rate for bonuses,
Okay.
not necessarily service-based, and did the 2%, I think that would be a fair package for employees.
Yep, totally agree.
Because
Okay.
Well, the Fray bumps,
You okay with that?
it'd be about 86,000 for $1,000 for our 86 that are listed.
yeah, we'll factor that in.
Okay.
That's cool. I feel like I'm normally the jerk.
And then,
For the record, you're right, sir.
So,
You threw it out there. I had to jump on it.
I know
Sorry.
how it is. I keep being told to be nice. There you go, so.
Way to go. Way to go.
I'm not gonna lie.
That's because we get along.
Right.
And because you're a sheriff.
That's true.
Yeah, there's that too. Little nuts.
I don't know what a full raise looks like.
Okay. Does that give you some direction?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bruce, I think that
Yeah.
takes care of I think Ryan had a couple of things he wanted, didn't you want to talk about?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so, got to meet with John Waldman for Will of the Wood in discussing bands. It was a really good conversation. I'm kind of told what, informed him what we're kind of thinking about as far as bands and things like that for next year. He had some good feedback on it. One being that when he was talking to agents and managers, that bands aren't, as of right now, touring. So it's looking like potentially next fall. They're really not committing to anything right now. And another thing, which I thought was pretty great that he brought up was, if the city, if we're putting X amount out there for a band, to retain a band, is the city willing to, at X amount of ticket price, say $25 for a ticket, and at capacity during COVID times, we can only let in so many people to the event. So with the city, if we go retain a band for $40K, say, and we can only let 1,000 people in, at $25 a ticket, that's $25K we could make, but we're off, the remaining amount. So I think it was really good conversation, talking to him. He said, on other bands that, we could go right now, and those that are willing to, it's just stupid money they're asking for bands to get out, because they're really not wanting to travel because of COVID, so they'll just throw some dumb number out there to us. So, that was kind of the extent on it. He said more Colorado-based regional bands are willing to travel during this time and commit, to get a lineup going. But, I think as we look into Whittle the Wood, I think, just trying to get some guidance from council on kind of what your guys' thoughts are, so I can kind of move forward and go see, potential bands out there. We can make it, try to obtain a larger band this season, and don't know, where we'd go. We could be drug out till X amount of months on this just because of COVID. They're not willing to commit, or, there's other opportunities, but I'd like to hear kind of council's thoughts and get feedback on that. And a big thing, John was asking is, what exactly, as far as a dollar amount, are we willing to go out there for a band? So just this feedback for you guys on there.
When do you gotta start engaging these bands? Is it before 2021?
It'd be, honestly, a year would be good, but that's the thing is with COVID, put just everything in the chaotic mess. So just kind of seeing what your guys' thoughts are to,
For me personally, I'd still be willing to go to the 80,000 we talked about like last year. The problem I'm going to have is if our great governor is going to decide that next summer we still have COVID restrictions, which I find completely ridiculous, but that's just my own personal beliefs. Then,
yeah, and-
I don't know why we would even bother again.
Yeah, I don't-
That's just my personal opinion. I think the next time we do this, we need to have a big band. We need to go like we've talked about.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with, I'm just throwing out that number. If it's more, great. I don't want to hear less, just so you know that, Paul. But
You're not gonna agree on that.
but I don't know. I still don't want to get some great band here and we can only have 25 people in the park.
Yeah, I don't want to do that.
I don't want to do that, right? So
Yeah, and that's really got me thinking. I think there's some different avenues of where we could approach this to where we could have multiple bands going all day, and make it still a fun, awesome event, just depending on, obviously those venue limits, but we still can get some bands in there. It may not be that, that big dollar amount of band, but we still can go make it a fun event. Because that's the key. I mean, that's something I think super valid is on those capacity limits. Yeah, that's great. You have a big band, but 5 people can come see it.
What's the limit now? Is it
500 outside.
It is, yeah, 500.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that's going to help me what your guys' feedback is so I can try to go navigate this and.
I think it's going to be hard to commit to anything right now.
Exactly.
I-
I don't know, can you?
But
Well, some of the bands, they'll
that'll be the problem, right?
that down payment essentially, and then they don't give it back.
Right.
So
Well, he's basically telling us that if Ryan, what you tell me is accurate, he's telling us that they're going to be charging up their rates just because of the uncertainty of what's happening. And so a band we might have gotten for 60,000 might cost us 80,000.
Right.
And just based on that uncertainty, maybe we ought to build our plan around something concrete that we know we can execute on at the end of June next year.
It's a lot less inexpensive, and maybe we try to 2022 go a little bigger, I guess.
Did we ever get the surveys back and
Excuse
figure
ourselves
out
from the
what the
union.
community was thinking about combining or keeping it the same? I haven't seen the results on that.
We're processing right now. Yeah.
So we're talking about you doing Father's Day weekend again, and we did a survey, and we don't know if the survey says we should combine two or we should do something?
Well, the thing is, so combining, Tony, right now is, as of next year, the Balloon Fest already has commitments to combine, so we couldn't do that.
And I don't think it's a feasible way.
It,
I mean, when you look at it logistically, I don't see where combining the Balloon Festival and Whittle of the Woods is a good idea.
Yeah, especially the time of the year that the Balloon Festival has to do it.
Exactly.
Because of the hay fields and everything else.
I don't like limiting our events.
Exactly.
Because
So why did
they
we
are
send
a
out the
draw.
survey then?
What's that?
Why did we send out a survey if we're going to just say, who cares what the survey says, we don't like it?
Well, that's a
We
good
should've
question.
just done what we were gonna do.
What did the
That's
survey
crazy.
say?
oh, we're processing it. It's,
Okay.
is mixed. It's a mixed bag, and not a lot of people actually, went out there and surveyed, but,
I think we need to move it from Father's Day weekend and quit competing with.
well,
Country Jam.
That's what I'm saying.
Country Jam got bought out by a big event venue, so next
Sure
year
it did.
it's gonna be run by a huge corporation, so it's gonna be bigger profit.
Right.
but one thing we will do for this year, we'll push it back a week out, so it'll be,
If we want to try to do something in 2021, maybe we kind of take it back more to that. And then I like your idea of, music all day, and maybe you keep the cost a little lower. It gets people out. It gives us something to do, something to look forward to. But then we focus our efforts more on 2022 with bringing in that bigger name band when hopefully we could have
Yeah.
1,500 people in attendance.
yeah, it's just so hard, the uncertainty, and you're trying to plan, and it's just.
And you mentioned regional bands, and was it Todd or Big Head Todd? They have quite the loyal following, right? I don't
Yeah.
know what they cost, but,
It's, yeah.
you know,
they're
they've been, you know, some good turnout when we've had those, and maybe this is your year, you go with a lesser regional band.
Yeah.
But I think even smaller than that, maybe. to where
That's
it's
what I was,
You know, several different people entertaining throughout the day.
Yeah.
yeah,
Keep
that's,
your ticket prices
yeah.
lower, and then,
I mean-
yeah, and then look to do something, you know,
Right.
bigger and bigger name the following year. when
that's
you-
what I was
band
thinking. And, you know, new up and coming acts and things like that, just to kind of expand it and do some activities, keep it fun and get everyone out, you know, so.
Think a little bit more rebel. Maybe we just decide, you know what? Like Tony just said, is he really gonna send the National Guard over here? Maybe we
might.
just do this.
But I
That's
think
right.
someone here is gonna be hard.
That'd be
I'm one
the
of
hard
three
part.
there.
Maybe we can land on
But I'm
something.
gonna try. I'm gonna try.
I think it's something to chew on. We don't have any definite answers for you right now, and I think dinner's here, right?
Yeah.
So we ought to give everybody a chance to eat.
I think we get through those songs before they shut us down. So
I think so.
Why don't we just like spend part of the budget like arming the citizens?
Right. I like that too. See?
Come and take our concert. You know?
You've really come around, Councilman James. You really have.
No, that's kind of been my attitude since I got here. And
Finally kind of have a good beard looking, and I mean, you're really coming around.
I'm a neckbeard libertarian right now because I've been doing this working lately.
if you take out the bridge on 394, then they have to go past the power plant.
Cut ourselves off. Come on, that's why we just arm.